Hi, everyone. On behalf of Coastal Premier Properties and our owners, Amy Green and Susan Myers Pike, we're so thrilled and happy to be able to introduce Dr. Ken Druck. Uh, Dr. Ken Druck is an internationally known expert in overcoming adversity, resilience, healing after loss, compassionate self-care, and family psychology. A best-selling author, executive coach, consultant, and recipient of the Distinguished Contribution to Psychology Award, Dr. Ken is a regular guest on CNN, Network News, and PBS specials. He's also the beloved fiance or of our own Lizette Amos and a huge supporter of CPP. To honor his daughter, Jenna's life and spirit, Ken founded the Jenna Druck Center in 1996 and has been a lifeline for countless individuals, families, organizations, and communities in the aftermath of tragedies including 9/11, Columbine, Sandy Hook, and most recently, the coronavirus pandemic. Ken's life work and courageous living and his book, The Real Rules of Life, show us how to turn life's adversities into opportunities for becoming the better version of ourselves. His book, including his recent bestsellers, Courageous Aging and Raising an Aging Parent, are published worldwide, and his work is featured regularly in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, The Hill, and mariashriver.com. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ken Druck. Thank you, Dr. Druck.
Thank you, Brandon. Good to be with you. Good to be with all of you. I want to start by acknowledging Amy, Jim, and Susan, Edgar, Tom, you, Brandon, and my number one teacher, Lisette, for inviting me to be with you on this very important morning. When I say this very important morning, it's because we're going to take a little bit of time to kind of push the pause button, to really talk with each other. Part of this morning is, and I'm going to get to talk with you. This is coffee time. So I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts and ideas about the biggest challenges that we're facing and how to meet them. And then the biggest opportunities that we have and how to harvest them. And we're going to be talking about that at length. And but I think even more important are going to be your questions, your concerns, and your insights. Some of you have done extraordinary things. You have been creative. If you're like my partner, Lisette, you have reinvented the wheel in so many ways. You've had to be creative. The best parts of you have come forth. And so we're going to be talking about how to do that. How do we bring the best in us out? Not only as individuals, but in the people around us. How do we bring out the best in each other? Whether that's our family, we may have kids that we're raising who are in the epicenter of our home. We may have aging parents. We may have neighbors that we haven't spoken to in years that we're talking to now. We may have a community that we're more aware of than ever, a nation that we're more aware of it than ever, and how that nation is running itself. We may be more acutely aware of the kind of decisions that are made on a grand scale that affect us right here in River City. So the opportunity is framed in terms of how we overcome and meet challenges and face adversity. And, as Brandon shared very briefly, my life was catapulted into adversity. In 1996, my phone rang with the nightmare phone call that nobody can possibly imagine, telling me that my daughter, who was studying abroad, she was actually in India at the time, on her way to the Taj Mahal. She had called me the day before to tell me, "Dad, I'm gonna go see. It's the world's greatest symbol of eternal love." And on the way to the Taj Mahal, the bus that she was on crashed, and she and 3 other beautiful young women died in that accident. So I'm talking to you about adversity I'm talking to you about what it means to be in a new normal, not off the top of my head. I'm talking from my own personal experience and the experience of literally thousands of people that I've had the honor and privilege of being able to work with after some of our nation's greatest tragedies, 9/11, some of the shootings around the country, some of the natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina. And now we have a disaster brought on by a virus. My God, we're all interconnected by a virus. We all have been wondering what's going to bring us together. We live in a world of such polarization. We're so separate. We're in our silos. What could bring us together? Well, how about the awareness that we're one droplet away from infecting each other? How about that vulnerability? How about that sense of interconnectedness, of personal responsibility, of social responsibility? So my world was turned inside out and upside down, much like your world. And many of you have gone through things like I've gone through in the past. So you know what I'm talking about. And our world has been turned inside out and upside down. And we're all standing in the ashes of Plan A, the way the world used to look, used to feel, used to be, the way we used to operate in the world. And now trying to sort out what's going to happen now. What's happening now? And we're going to ask that question. What's happening now to me? How am I doing with this? How am I faring being at home, spending so much time? Lisette and I are working a couple of feet away from each other. Suddenly we have offices now right next to each other. The phone rings and it's one of her clients. And it's like, I got to get out of here because I want to give her the privacy and confidentiality that she needs. And then my phone rings and it's one of my clients and she leaves. And so we're all learning how to live together. How are we doing as families? How are we doing in terms of our own individual psyche, our own heart and soul? For many of us, we're confronting for the first time how vulnerable we are. I mean, yeah, some of us are bulletproof, nothing, come on now. And we live in a bulletproof world, but some of us are feeling vulnerable, like, my goodness, what if? So here we are. Let's look at some of these challenges. I wrote a couple of things down. So the first thing I would say to you is that it's natural and normal for us to be going in this process. And what helps us to understand and tapping that resilient spirit within all of us, that we're calling upon within all of us, is to understand that we're not going to completely know what to do instantly. Coastal Premier has some of the most resourceful people I've ever met. People who are used to, people will tell me the impossible just takes a little longer, that's all. Resourceful people who are used to figuring stuff out and fixing it, knowing what to do right away and doing it. Well, guess what? We're in a world of not knowing immediately what to do. It's not because we failed or we're not smart enough. We're not resilient enough. It's because we're in a new normal. And in a new normal, we go from surreal, like, is this really happening? To all too real, which is, my God, it's really happening. One of my neighbors just died. And it hits us. And we go from that surreal to all too real. And we're managing that. And some of us do better than others. Some of us get really stuck in the all too real. We're frozen in a state of anxiety and fear. How do we not do that? How do we tap into that resilient spirit? How do we maintain perspective while being personally responsible, taking better care of ourselves, practicing better hygiene than we ever have because we need to, and being socially responsible because we also affect other people. And who knows whether we're carrying something or not. These are all the unknowns. So going through, I think, the surreal to all too real is part of it. My hope and prayer is for everybody, everybody's in a different place. Some of you know people who have tested positive. Some of you are very distant from any possibility. You don't know anybody, and this is all a big abstraction. So let's be respectful. We're all going through something different. That's the second thing. So there's naturally and normally a feeling of, I didn't sign up for this. When's this damn thing going to be over? Feeling of impatience and resentment and this is all screwed up. And who can I blame? And who can we, how did this happen? And how do we get out of it? And so on. And it's understandable that we're feeling agitated. We're turned inside out and upside down. So some of us are being really inspired to find out, how do I calm myself? How do I soothe myself? How do I talk myself down from being impatient and doing something impulsive and reckless, running out or doing something that puts me or somebody else at risk? How do I do that? And we're having to call upon our ability to calm and center ourselves and to gain perspective, to take that deep breath and to understand that my commitment is for this to bring out the best parts of me. Yeah, I know I'm impatient at times and I want, let's get on with it already. I've got my foot on the gas pedal in life. And so I can't wait to get my foot back on the gas pedal. How do I do that in a new way that I'm being respectful of myself and other people? And that's the great challenge of the resilient spirit. Let's go over a couple of things. The other thing I think it's important for us to understand is that in our culture, when I teach a class occasionally at the Harvard School of Public Health called Grief Literacy, because we're not a very grief literate culture. We don't accept or understand loss very well. And yet we're kind of a society that has taught our kids that there's a pill for every pain, a diversion for every moment of emptiness, turn on a screen, a fix for every problem. And the truth is that there isn't. That sometimes we have to summon the courage and the perspective and the clarity and the understanding and the faith to just stand in a moment of sorrow, to stand in a moment of unknowingness, of lostness. We don't know exactly what to do or how to go forward. And it's our ability to stand in that moment, to take a deep breath. If we have somebody we can trust, to vent to them, to be able to share with a trusted confidant, hey, I'm really struggling. I'm really having a hard time, or I find myself, to talk about that part of us that's not necessarily the best part of us. This is not bringing out the best part of me. This is bringing out that other part of me. So I think talking it out, breathing it out, continuing to move and exercise and eat well and do all the things that constitute exceptional self-care, and communicate, because we can't keep everything in our own heads. We need other people that we can be able to talk to. And the Coastal Premier community is a safe place where we can vent with each other without fear of being judged. It's like, oh my God, did he say that? Or did she really say that? So I think that's important for the resilient spirit as well. The other thing, I think I'm going to start getting into what I believe are some of the challenges of the situation that we're in. Well, the challenge to stay healthy. We've talked about that already. To take care of ourselves in an unprecedented way and to know that we are vulnerable, we're not bulletproof. To practice self-health and self-care is another one. Physical distancing. Hopefully it's physical, not social. Many of us are, we're going to talk about the opportunities in a second, but many of us are actually getting closer to the people in our lives, the people who we hold precious. We're not socially distant, we're physically distancing, but socially becoming closer. And that's an important opportunity we'll talk about in a second. Discontinuity, disruption, we've talked about. We're all going through that. It's natural, it's normal. How could we not be turned inside out and upside down? What's going on? How could we not be experiencing all the uncertainties and unknowns of what's going on. So I think breathing and realizing, of course I don't know what's going on. Of course I don't have a crystal ball, and accepting that rather than fighting it and resisting it and getting angry and resentful about it and doing something impulsive that we shouldn't be doing. The threat of livelihood is real. And again, we're on a spectrum. Some of us are extremely concerned, and our clients are extremely concerned about their own livelihood, their ability to survive this, because the structures that have been in place that allow you to make a living, to thrive, to do all the good things that you've been doing have been threatened, have been attacked, have been compromised. On the other end of the spectrum are people who are not really that worried about it. So I think we just want to be respectful. We want to know, sometimes the best question to ask another person is, what's most heavy on your heart right now? And the other question to ask is, what's making your heart sing right now? Is there anything that's going on that's making your heart sing? Maybe you're discovering something in your sheltering at home that's giving you joy or relief or a sense of aliveness, or you're feeling more alert and awake about things than you ever have. Who knows? Okay, other challenges to meet. The complete loss of normalcy, the family relationship challenge. How many of us are, if I asked all of you, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now in your family? What would you say to me? Living together 24/7. We all watch different TV shows, invading each other's space. It's like, who gets the dining room table? Because that's the desk. That's where everybody's working remotely to do homework or to do work remotely with clients. What is the biggest challenge? Are you in such close proximity that some of the differences you've had all over these years are coming out even more? That some of what you're butting heads with each other. Or on the other side, because we're going to look at the opportunities, are you using this as an opportunity to bring your family closer? Are you discovering ways that you can talk, that you can become a better listener? You can always tell a better listener. They've got scar tissue on their tongue because they bite it and they're listening. They're listening. They're asking open-ended questions that draw the other person out, rather than waiting and rehearsing to talk again. They're listening and drawing another person out. Okay, a couple of more challenges. Comforting and memorializing the people we love. The family that I'm working with had a family member die. A client of mine had her brother die. She wasn't even allowed to go in and comfort him and be with him in the final days of his life. And now the family cannot bury him. So talk about challenges. How do we memorialize and express our love? Well, they ended up getting an iPad in his ICU room. And all of them gathered around the iPad to tell him how much they loved him. And the last communication was a smile and a tear from him, because he knew that they were with him. So again, we need to be creative. And I know on the opportunity side, so many of you, like Lisette, have been finding a great creative core in you, doing video work, learning how to work virtually, and doing amazing things. Other challenges, the time on our hands, the additional time. We're not working all the time. I wrote an article the other day about the hermit and the slug and the sloth in me, about how I'm actually sitting. I've spent most of my life with my foot on the gas pedal. I'm actually sitting now and looking out the window. We have this beautiful view of the ocean, and listening to birds and taking a deep breath and moving more gently between things that I have to do, coming up for air, unplugging, turning off the TV, listening to music that I love. So, challenges. The last thing I would say on challenges is that there's an invitation to become the kind of dumbed down version of ourselves, to turn down the thermostat, to cope with that, everything that's going on by doing that, and a couple of bottles of wine every night, or who knows what. But in some way, what's happening to you is not bringing out the best in you. It's inviting you to push down too much. You're not perhaps talking enough and airing out and venting enough. Okay, so let's look at the opportunities. Found time. How many people are doing spring cleaning, organizing, uncluttering, throwing stuff out? So the opportunity there. Family closeness we talked about. Reprioritizing what's really important. Many people have told me, in all this space, I'm really getting to think more clearly about what's really important to me. I'm realizing what's really important. And I think when I go back into the busyness, I'm going to reprioritize some things, because I have a clearer sense of what really is meaningful to me, of what's going to really make a quality difference in my life and in my work with other people. Those awarenesses, I'm becoming more awake. I'm not dumbing down. I'm waking up to a clearer awareness of how I want to live my life, how I want to operate in my relationships. Making decisions about our best possible future. How many of us are sitting at home? We've never spent as much time at home. And we're noticing, what? This house is small. Is this really where we want to live? Maybe it would be great to be closer to the grandkids. Maybe it'd be nicer to be a little closer to the ocean. My goodness, people are going to be, if we ask the open-ended question of our clients, has being at home and spending as much time as you've been spending, because you're not used to this, spending this much time at home, given you any awarenesses about, hey, we need to remodel this, we need to unclutter this, I want to downsize and I want to live in a smaller house, or I think we need a bigger house, this feels very confining, or we want to move to a different neighborhood. So I think the opportunity side from a business and personal standpoint is to strike up that conversation with our clients about, has this given you time to think about what you'd like and perhaps make a change, because you've realized that your best possible future is not in this house, it's selling this house. You've reimagined the future, and you've reimagined where you do want to live, where you want to spend the next season of your life. Okay, so another opportunity. So, summoning newfound courage, strength, faith, and patience. Each season of life challenges us to summon, to call upon from within ourselves that resilient spirit, to call from within ourselves the part of us that is stronger, more courageous, more bold, more direct and forthright in the way we deal with people. So hopefully you're using this as an opportunity to communicate clearly, more directly, in a more caring and respectful, even kinder way with the people who really matter in your life. Expressing gratitude. Hey, has this been an awakening of gratitude? How many of us have really ever appreciated our doctors and nurses, first responders, healthcare workers, realtors? My God, how many of us have ever really appreciated what you have to be, all the different professions that combine to work in real estate? You've got to be an architect. You've got to be a health expert. You've got to be an economist, a financial advisor. I mean, how many different, I wrote down the other day, I was thinking, my God, I watch Lisette and I listen, sometimes I hear her talking about her work. Architect, interior designer, personal advisor, marriage counselor, school consultant, remodeling expert, termite expert, archaeological expert, and the list goes on and on. So how many of us are appreciating both ourselves and those people who make our world and our life better, who take care of us, who provide a service, an essential service in our lives? And you guys, I include amongst them. You do your job very quietly, but I understand what you do. And it's enormous and it's huge. So, expressing gratitude, self-calming, soothing, and relaxing. For how many of us are we doing an audit on, hey, you know, I've been thinking about meditating and I've been thinking about what I do to relax, those hikes that I go on, those walks that I take, the music that I listen to, the self-talk, the ways that I talk to myself. You know, the other day, somebody asked me to consolidate. He said, if you had a slogan, what would it be for this year? I said, take your foot off your throat and put your hand on your heart. Practice self-compassion. You want to calm down and get centered and manage whatever feelings are coming up for you. And we have these great emotional radar systems that send us signals. You're scared, you're sad, you're happy, you're confused, whatever. How do we manage that radar system? And if you want to manage it more effectively, change the conversation in your head from one of self-criticism, admonishments, criticism, that admonishing finger that's in your face telling you what to do, or you didn't do enough, or you should have done it different. And change that conversation to one of self-compassion. Put your hand on your heart. Speak to yourself with kindness, encouragement, patience, and so on. Let's go to another one and we'll finish up. And then I want you to be thinking about your questions. Becoming the awakened version of yourself. And that awakened version often not only knows how to become your best possible self and bring out the best in others, but that best version of ourselves is often one that shows compassion for other people. All of us, and hopefully you're not at the epicenter of a loss, or somebody whose life is threatened, or somebody whose livelihood is threatened and who's suffering and struggling, because we know there are families in our community that are. But hopefully all of us have become advocates for those people who are struggling and suffering, those people who need a hand, who need our support right now. So I think the opportunity to be a more compassionate person and member of our community, and to understand that other people are having a real hard time and are likely going to be having a hard time for quite some time to come. I think positioning ourselves to share a little bit of what we have with them, if nothing else, a heartful question, asking them how they're doing. And the other thing is, Lisette's dad taught me something very important, because we're in the age where we can't hug right now. Lisette's dad said, I want to show you how to give a hug. You can give as much love as a regular hug if you give, and I call it Beto's hug. That's his name, Beto. And this is Beto's hug. And he looked at me and he went like this, and he says, I'm hugging you right now. I'm loving you right now. And I could feel it. And I hugged him back, and I could feel the love coming from me to him. This is a heart hug. And we can do this. We can share Beto's hug with all those people that we need to hug, to give them this hug until we can give them this hug. So let's be patient on that. With that, I would like to invite you to think about two things quickly. Number one, to think about 10 things that you have awakened to, things you become aware of, that could, if you followed up and did them and cultivated them, could result in you becoming the better version of yourself. 10 things. Listen more. Act with kindness. Be more creative. Continue to be creative the way I've been. I don't care what it is. It could be on a personal level, a social level, a spiritual level, a business level, wherever you want to go. 10 things. And I want you to write them down. I want to invite you to write those things down and put them in an envelope. Put them in an envelope that you're going to open 3 to 6 months from now to see how you did and how you followed up. It's an accountability exercise, isn't it? It's taking the best of what we've realized out of this crisis and looking at what the opportunity is for us to become the better version of ourselves, but not just thinking it in a passing thought this morning, writing it down, holding ourselves accountable, and in 3 to 6 months, opening that letter to ourselves to see how we're doing in bringing about, in summoning, in cultivating these great qualities, in taking action and becoming that better version of ourselves. And with that, I want to welcome your insights, your observations, things that you're doing that are working that you can share with everybody, as well as your questions. Brandon, are there any questions that we can address right now?
Yeah, so if anybody has questions, if you'd please type them in the chat box, and then we can also get you to speak directly with Dr. Ken as well about them. But if you'll start with them in the chat box, we'll be able to ask them one by one.
Some of the questions, by the way, while we're waiting for people to throw them in the chat box, some of the questions are, one person said, I'm co-parenting. It's difficult enough in normal times to co-parent. It feels impossible in this era because now we're not just being parents, with, hey, honey, I'll be home later, or, we're co-parenting in the same house. And maybe our styles are different. So how do we bring out the best in each other's style? And I think something like that begins with a conversation between the couple. If you're butting heads in the way you're doing anything, making dinner, raising the kids, conducting business, we're gonna bump heads. We're not used to this. So I think a calming conversation. Let's get ahead of the pain curve. Don't let a situation escalate. If there's something that you could bring up in a positive tone to your partner, that's going to result in having a better relationship, getting along better, getting on the same page, working together. Do it sooner than later, and do it in the tone that you like to be spoken to.
So Ken, how do we take these new good habits with us into the new normal, such as not being as busy, being more present? By the way, we're also grateful and happy you're here with us.
Thank you. Well, I think like anything, the way we become the better version of ourselves is to first of all realize, what is it that I want? What's the better version of me? How do if I want to calm down or slow down, what would that look like? Let's use that incredible capacity we have to take thinking experimental steps into the future of the better us. It's called our imagination. And let's use our imagination picture. Look at me. I can see. There's the me that's calmer, that's moving slower, that can go deeper with people, that's more attentive, that's a better listener, that's more aware of what's going around me, that's alive in a sensory way. Whatever it is, write it down, because that's where you're going to get started. The second thing is to look at, how do I cultivate that in me? How do I put into practice doing that, becoming that? And I think all of us have different ways of doing it. For some of us, it means the way we start our day. It means entering our day with, maybe we have something we read every day that reminds us of the tone we want to set for ourselves, or it grounds us in a slower, calmer place. Some of us would do that. For others, it would be a practice of contemplative prayer and meditation, or putting on calming music. For others, it might be a message that you put up on your desk or on your mirror, the bathroom mirror, that says, slow down, enjoy this day of life. But a message to ourselves, an affirmation of what it is that we are trying to become more of, what that better version of us looks like. And I think then just putting it into practice, and sometimes setting a goal for ourselves, saying, we can even look at our partner and say, this year, my goal is to become the slower version of me, to cultivate ease in me, because I've been so tight. I'm so tightly wound. I want to be more relaxed. I want to be easier going in people's company. So if that's our goal, to write it down, to tell somebody we value, to say, would you be my sponsor, my supporter, my reality check? Because my goal is to become more of this. And I want to be able to check back with you at different points during this year to see how I'm doing. And the last thing I would say is to understand what it is that would sabotage you becoming the more relaxed version of you. Is there something that a message that you keep sending yourself that drives you, that makes you feel like you're not doing enough? What are the saboteurs to your becoming that better version of yourself that you're going to need to calm down, speak to, work with, talk about, air out about, and diffuse? Because those saboteurs, most of us know how to take better care of ourselves, but we don't do it because we have self-care saboteurs. These are the becoming better version of myself saboteurs. And we need to know what they are so that we can diffuse them.
That's awesome. And Anna asked, Dr. Ken, what are the best ways or methods to get out of a bad mindset? If business is going bad or problems at home, how do you get out of that bad mindset?
Well, I'm one who advocates that sometimes we get caught in the loop in our own head. And it's almost like, people who are hyper self-critical, extremely self-critical, I tell them, if I were to really look at the way you process things and think about things, it would be the equivalent of being in a courtroom with only a prosecuting attorney. No judge, no jury, no defense attorney to say, Your Honor, I object. That's ridiculous. It's just a prosecuting attorney accumulating evidence that you're a bad person. You're not good enough. You're not doing enough. Everything's going to hell, and feeding you all these messages that are working you into a state of depression or anxiety or negativity or whatever you want to call it. So I think the first thing we need to do is to police ourselves to see, am I like that person in the courtroom who's only prosecuting or only bringing up bad evidence and catastrophizing? Is that what I'm doing? Maybe I need to change the menu of thoughts that I feed myself. And the second thing is that sometimes what helps is to have a trusted confidant in our life or in our office, but someone in our life who we can air out and to say, I'm working on, sometimes I have bad thoughts. I'm digging a hole. I'm really working myself into a good depression or a good negative state. I'm feeding my fear. I'm feeding my sense of dread. I'm pouring water on it, cultivating it, putting it, taking it out of the sun every day. And I need to stop doing that. And it would help me to be able to talk about some of the things that are going well in my life, to change the conversation in my head, to think about the blessings, the miracles, the gifts, the good things that are happening in my life, and to rebalance that conversation in my head so that I'm also acknowledging the good stuff that's happening. There are good things happening. It's amazing. The news has changed. We turn on the news now. What do we see? We see people singing on their balconies in Italy, serenading each other. We see people, firefighters, singing and serenading the doctors and nurses as they come off their shift in Brooklyn, New York. We see people driving to food banks and dropping off tons of food for those people in our community that are having trouble, that are really struggling and suffering to make ends meet, to feed their kids. So it's focusing on the good things that are happening and making sure that we're doing everything in our power to manage the truly bad things that are happening. That means being personally responsible and socially responsible.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. And also from Frank here, kind of going off of the same idea, but if you've had a loss in your past, and you may be aware of his loss with Luke 7 months ago, how do we grieve with this new layer on us? You know,
Yeah.
he rented an electric bike to get away until Torrey Pines hikes are given back to us. Just wondering if there's any outlets or any ways to grieve during with this additional layer on us.
Well, first of all, I think I'm so grateful for that question. And my heart goes out to you and your family. And, you know, I can remember back to 7 months after my daughter Jenna passed. You know, I can't tell you I was coming or going. And to understand that, how could you not be lost? How could this not be triggering feelings in you of sorrow? How could this not be, you know, and we also not only experienced life loss, but for many people, this COVID-19 has done what? It's triggered living losses. Nobody has died necessarily, but people have lost their source of income. They've lost their sense of security. They've lost their life plan. They've lost their business. They've lost the access they have to people they love, companionship, closeness. There are people in retirement communities now that have to communicate over virtually with the people they love. I mean, people in your office, you guys are learning how to access each other. You've lost each other's company directly, but you're enjoying it. You're creating it virtually. Here we are on a virtual call, all gathering together, trying to figure out how we can feel connected and stay connected and strengthen our connections to each other and strengthen our business and adapt and adjust creatively. So I would say to you, Frank, that my heart is with you. My support is with you. That this is the grief journey goes on. And if ever I can be of support and help to you or share materials with you, because I've written so much about this and have had the honor and pleasure of working with so many people who are grieving. If ever I can be of support to you, I'm right here. I'm your neighbor.
Thank you so much. And with us spending more time on social media right now, online, how do you forgive people for their politics or political outbursts on social media? Anything that's just against your way of thinking?
Yeah. Well, this is a challenge that we have come into this COVID, this world global health crisis with a very polarized world. We've divided the world up to the guys who are right and the guys who are wrong, the good guys and the bad guys. And I think what this has helped us do, those people who are singing from their balconies, or those people who are dropping off food, nobody asked them whether they're Republican or Democrat, or who they voted for, or who they're going to vote for in November. And sometimes, you know, we need to neutralize. We need to find the common ground. It's crazy that the common ground we found was a virus that could kill all of us. Didn't care whether we're young, old, Republican, Democrat, Independent. Didn't give a damn where we lived in town. It just is a virus that shows us we are interconnected and that we can show one another understanding, patience, kindness, that we have differences in the way we see the world, but we also have common ground. And sometimes we just need to walk on that common ground rather than to escalate and inflame our differences. Look, there are people who disagree with the way I see the world politically tremendously. And they think I drank the Kool-Aid. I think they drank the Kool-Aid. That's just the way it is. But this is not a time for us to start contextualizing everything that's happening in political terms. That would be a horrible mistake. And we'd miss out on the support and understanding, kindness that we really need and that the world's hungry for right now. We need to find common ground and to stay on our common ground while also understanding that other people can see the world very different than us.
Agreed. And Monica has a question for you. Thanks, Ken, for being here for us. It's really hard to do that when you have the fear of, you know, economic impact on your family and dealing with a teenager that's not sleeping at night because they're up talking with their friends all night. Also dealing with an aging sick dad, and then the coronavirus just on top of this. It's hard to think about all of it and relax. And in her case, it just tends to be easier to sleep and not even think about it.
Yep. Well, a lot of us have discovered, like Monica, that we need to download the new operating system for self-care. The new operating system for self-care. We can't go out and get a mani and a pedi. And some of the things that we've done, whether it's sleeping or drinking or eating, or the things that we've done to cope at times that are less stressful, aren't working right now. So we need to upgrade our awareness of how we can take care of ourselves better. And with sometimes, if it's with a kid, a teenager who's up all night on the phone, having a conversation with that teenager, including them in the solution and saying, hey, I'm worried about you. I love you. I'm concerned about you being up all night on the phone. What would you suggest? Do you think it's helping you to do that? Do you think there are some ways that it might not be helping you to do that? Can we have a conversation about that? And asking them to participate in the solution often helps, especially with teenage kids, because often the solution they come up with is more harsh than what we would have said. And they do have that critical thinking ability because we've instilled it in them over the years. We just need to open the conversation in a way that doesn't polarize them, like, oh, Mom, I got to defend against Mom because she's coming after me again and attack me. No, include them. Include them in the solution. Ask them what they think would be smarter and better than doing what they're doing. The thing about aging parents, especially if you have an aging parent who is not well, it's incredibly frustrating. We can't love them. We can't love and take care of and comfort them the way we want to. It's extremely difficult. You're in an impossibly challenging situation. And so, your hand on your own heart, reminding yourself that you are doing the very best possible job you can do under the circumstances. And the other part is that it's already under normal circumstances, it's hard to watch our parents get older. And when our parents fall ill, and when we have to face the prospect that they might not be with us much longer, it's sad. And allow yourself to cry those tears of sorrow. Allow yourself to cry out, because that's one of the parts of life that is sad. And the way we rebalance ourselves is to give ourselves permission to just be sad and to share that sadness, not to burden other people, but to share that sadness with those who can listen, our trusted confidants.
Wonderful. If anybody else has any questions, please put them in the chat box. But otherwise, Dr. Ken, I love that about taking the hand off the throat and putting it on the heart. That's amazing. And also, just thank you so much for being with us. I think we've all gained something from this, so really appreciate it. And giving you a hug. Everybody on the screen's giving you a hug right now.
Yeah. I wish. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Coastal Premier, for the service that you guys are providing and the creativity that I see in Lisette, that I know all of you are bringing to reinventing how you do business. And any way I can continue to support and help you guys, I'm with you. I'm cheering you on. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. And if you're a client of Coastal Premier, join me in giving gratitude to these amazing people who are putting themselves on the line for us under the most difficult circumstances. Thank you.